Barry Blanchard is probably Canada's best known alpinist and mountain guide and is respected around the world. He has pioneered difficult routes here in the Rockies, in the European Alps, and in the Himalayas. His fine climbs on the north face of the North Twin, the east face of Mount Fay, and the Emperor face of Mount Robson are amongst the hardest climbs ever here in Canada. Barry has worked for more than 40 years as a mountain guide. I caught up with Barry in his home here in Canmore on December 6, 1996.
Yes, mountain climbing. I kind of, growing up in Calgary, got exposed to it initially. Well, I mean, everyone knows that mountain climbing exists, and actually when I was coming back from Saskatchewan once, having visited my dad, I think I was taking the Greyhound bus back, and a woman beside me, probably in her 20s, was reading The White Spider, and it's a long bus ride, and she was kind of enthusiastic about it, and of course I said, "Oh, what are you reading?" I think I was all like 13 years old or something, and she said, "Oh, it's The White Spider. It's about the first ascent of the North Face of the Eiger." And she read some of the passages to me and showed me the pictures and stuff. And I thought, God, that's wild. That looks really cool. And then later on, about the same time, actually, I had a scoutmaster. I was a scout at the Scarborough Church in Calgary, and or the Scarborough Troop. And one of our scoutmasters had been a climber. And he described some stories about climbing and took us hiking up once over the ridge of Yamnuska, and pointed out some climbers on the face when we all kind of laid down on our stomachs and looked over the edge, and I just couldn't believe that there was people down in this environment. And then it was to the school library and reading a lot of the classics, and for me, I think Bonatti's books were the best stuff I read, and then just started dreaming about being a climber, and or actually my original experiences with the physical act of doing it were rappelling with Army cadets. And then we bought a rope, and me and my buddies would take off at midnight in Calgary and go down the old warehouses along Electric Avenue and pull down the fire escape before it was Electric Avenue, go up to the top, tie the rope off our 9mm climbing rope, off to the flagpole on top of the building, chuck it over the side, and with yellow polypro clothesline, basically, tie a harness that I'd learned to tie in the cadets, and use our one locking carabiner and go plummeting over the sides of these, 6-story high warehouses. And it actually wasn't until the 12th year of high school that I got or 11th or 12th year that I got an opportunity to go out with a buddy who had taken a rock climbing course and got some gear, and we went out to Wassuch, and that's where I started climbing.
Yeah? Who was that buddy?
This guy named Phil Conway. Phil went up onto Wassuch and tried to lead one of the corners. We just picked a route that looked feasible, and he got up about 20 feet and got stymied, and we were, he came down and said, "Well, we should leave. This is too scary." And I said, no, let me try. So I went up there and managed to lead the thing, and from then on, actually, my first 2 years of climbing, I led everything. And that's how I learned to climb, basically, was on the sharp end from day one. And it was a very slow, monotonous process. But Phil was only along for a couple of the days. Then another guy from high school, Ron Humble, we would go into the shops. And I remember seeing you in the hostel shop early on, and, having Ron say, "Oh, that's Chick Scott." It's like, and there you were with this big beard and big down park in the middle of a Calgary horrendous winter, and I thought, oh man, that's Chick Scott. And we were just so shy that we never approached any other climbers, and we went along like that. And after 2 years, our huge accomplishments were that we did the red shirt route on Yamnuska, and we went at the East Ridge of Temple in blue jeans and hiking boots, and didn't really know from the guidebook description, which is pretty sparse, whether you needed crampons or ice axes, which you definitely need to get up to the top. But we made it up to the tabletop along the Black Towers, where you look over the northeast face, and then we came down from there.
Oh, you came down?
Yeah, we retreated the whole thing, chopped a rope, But we bivouacked up there, and Yeah. And then it was right at about that time. It would have been 1978. I'd been out of high school for a year or two, and I met Kevin then.
Yeah.
And when I met Kevin Doyle, it just kind of all changed for me. I started, Kevin kind of pushed me into a higher standard pretty quick.
Where did you meet Kevin?
I met him at my house in Calgary. I was working as a business rep for Pitney Bowes of Canada Limited. I sold mailing machines and copiers and business machines. I had an MGB and a number of suits and a briefcase, and I would go to oil companies downtown in my territory and knock on the door and try to sell them all kinds of equipment they didn't need. If I was successful in selling equipment, I made these just obscene amounts of money in commission. And I was living with one of the senior sales guys in a big house up in northwest Calgary, and he was dating he had dated Kevin's sister. And Kevin, I had met Maureen a couple times, and she said, "Oh, you should meet my brother Kevin. He's a climber." And Kevin showed up one day at the house, and I came home from work, and there was Kevin, and it's like, "Oh, you're a climber, eh?" It's like, "Yeah, I do some climbing." And he says, "Yeah, you've been up on Yam?" And I said, "Yeah, we've been up on Yam," and I think by then we'd done the Derek Tisma route, Ron Humble and I, and he said, "What routes have you done?" And I said, "Well, we just did Derek Tisma." And he goes, "Oh yeah, that's easy." So yeah. Oh yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
And we went out climbing the next weekend. I think we went to one of those the classic 5/8 crack, not Forbidden Corner, but Chalkstone Corner, and kind of went there and just really didn't look back for a couple of years.
No.
Just
formed probably the most potent partnership this area has seen for a long time. Yeah.
I should have kept my suits if I was going to be, potent. I want to look impotent.
That's right. So, so what did you and Kevin do?
For Kevin and I, we really just went at Yamnuska. We had a kind of an agenda, an unwritten agenda, and that was to do every 5/9 on the mountain. And we progressed through all these great experiences, basically following, Urs and what Urs and Greenwood had done, and culminating in Balrog, which was a great, it was a cool climb and really important to us. And Urs said to us later that, it was really good that you guys did that. It's an important climb for you. And we got pretty keen with the whole thing and managed in the busy lifestyle of a young man in Calgary to fit in, ice climbing in the winter too. And we just started doing as much ice climbing as we could. And kind of in the winter of '79, we skied in and did Takaka Falls and skied out. And, did the round trip in 24 hours, which is, I think, was people did that at that time. But for us, it was great. We talked to Lachlan a bit about it before. And then Kevin had made the commitment to quit his job, take his money, and go to Chamonix. That was one of his big dreams, to go to Chamonix where alpine climbing happened. And I kind of, he laid it to me, you want to come? And I was looking at what I was doing and realized that if I stayed selling business machines and photocopiers and everything, I was going to end up like some of the senior salesmen that I worked with, who were basically hard drinking, and I don't know if a lot of them were necessarily really happy. So I thought, I'm going to cash in on this, take this last commission check, and rather than go out and support the restaurant bar scene in Canmore, Calgary, I'd take off to Europe with Kevin. And we took off to Chamonix and had a season over there. And for me, I know it's not the same for Kevin. Kevin always kind of realized that he was capable of climbing these things, whether it was conscious or not. Kevin, we used to think that the biggest thing you could do to ensure success on any mountain in the world, be it any medium you wanted to choose, was take Kevin to the bottom and tell him he couldn't climb it, and then just hold on. And hopefully get tied in fast enough that you didn't get left behind on the ground with the rope going.
Yeah.
But me, I was really very intimidated by the big routes in the Alps and the grand course alpine routes. And I'd read Gaston Rébuffet's book, and I knew anything over about number 85 of the 100 best routes of the Mont Blanc Massif were going to be Superman ground. You had to be an exceptionally blessed individual to be able to do these routes. And within getting a couple weeks or a month of getting Chamonix, we did the Bonatti Pillar, and it was like, wow, Walter Bonatti did this, and we did it. And then towards the end of the season, we got our sights set on what we thought would be a really good big route for us that season, and that was the North Face of Lake Douat. And that one definitely, was number 99 in the book, and I didn't think, I found it really intimidating. I didn't think that I was an exceptionally blessed individual, that I would be, I thought you had to be a Superman to climb those kind of things. And interestingly enough, Lachlan and Congdon, Dwayne and John, over there on the Ensemble Mont, had climbed that route earlier that summer. And towards the end of the season, I went into the alpine-stock bar, and there was John, with this huge steak sandwich in front of him. This thing's about the size of your forearm. And they just come down from doing the third ascent of the McIntyre-Colton route on the Grand Jurasse, which had been the route of the summer kind of thing. It really was the big route that summer. And he was just jazzed, and Dwayne was just jazzed. You could just see it in, those Lachlan eyes of pure blue electricity that just drill you. If you turned his attention on you, it was like... So anyways, I stumbled in there and it says, John, what's happening, man? What's up? And it's like, man, we just did this route. You wouldn't believe it. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, wow, holy fuck, oh, God, that's so cool. And then he, as he always did, he said, so what are you and Kevin planning? And I was really scared to mention it, to let the name out, like, of Les Douat, because then it would almost be committing. And it's like, well, we're thinking about the North Face of Les Douat. And he just turned that concentration and intensity on me and just said, man, it's perfect for you. And I said, well, it's a big route, John. I mean, you and Dwayne did it, yeah. I mean, but God, it's like 3,000 feet of some grade 5 ice and everything. And he said, I was waffling, and he just said, listen, it's perfect for you. It's like 3 pieces of Canada. You do the North Face of Athabasca, you've done that. You do Cascade Waterfall, you've done that, a number of times. Then you do Takaka, and that's it. And that, kind of worked for me. It's like, broke it down into terms I can understand. And it was actually a really accurate description of how that route, the physical nature of that route. And Kevin and I went in there in the first week of September and did this route and went where the Superman had gone. And, I guess it was a huge personal growth.
Yeah, and then you came back to Canada and set the ice climbing world on fire a little bit, I think.
Yeah, we...
those were good years for you.
Yeah. I mean, God, those were fantastic years. Like I often tell people, I don't know what's gone wrong in my life, but I look back at those years and we climbed, 200 days a year and loved climbing 200 days a year. And I haven't been able to do it since. Well, guiding aside, to climb for yourself for 200 days is, I wish I could pull it off again. Maybe I'll get it together. But yeah, we came back from Europe, and we had made a pact, Kevin and I, when we left Europe in the late fall of that year, that we would both come back and work, and then the next fall we'd go to Yosemite. So we came back. Kevin got a job as a carpenter. I got a job as a milkman. I was delivering milk door to door. And we did a bunch of ice climbing that winter. We did, at that time, when the ice climbing guidebook only had 33 routes in it, I think, there was 4 grade 6 waterfalls. And that was what we wanted to do in that winter. I think we did do all 4 of them. And we were getting pretty good at ice climbing. We were strong and fit. We were training like fiends. And we were doing a lot of it. We understood the medium. We understood the limits of the technology at that time. We just seemed to be able to do it, get pretty fast at it. So we, made some times that were considered good and made the improvements now.
Did you do the first one-day ascent of Slipstream that winter?
We did, you started splitting hairs, eh? We did the first road-to-road ascent of Slipstream in one day. We started at the road and we didn't bivouac. We went in, climbed it, we were out at the road 17 hours later, which was good. I mean, hadn't been, most people would go in and bivouac and draw it out. Whether they actually spent more or less time on the route, I don't know. But we thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And how old were you, 19 years old maybe?
Oh, no, we were... that was 1981, 82, so 23, 23, 24. Yeah. We were getting
some mileage by then.
Getting on. Yeah, 23, I guess. That was 81. Well, it would have been 22 in 81, 23 in 82. So.
Yeah. And then somewhere in there, you started to...
I'm still thinking about the age. 21. It's solved.
You were 21 years old, right?
Yeah, 81. Yeah.
81.
Yeah, it's not hard. You're born in 59. You just do the math.
That's right. Yeah. And then I guess the next year you went to Denali.
Yes. After a trip to the valley, we went to the valley as planned in the fall. We took off and went down there and did the requisite... It was my first trip to the valley, and actually till about a year ago, my only trip to the valley. We stayed for a couple months, and with Tim Friesen did, the proper walls, the northwest on Half Dome. Then with Tim, we went and did the nose, and then Tim left, and Kevin and I did the Salafay. And then Kevin was trying to stay longer, but his handcuffs came out of the bank machine when he was trying to weasel more money on his Visa card. So the doors started closing, the card disappeared. I was like, thank you for playing. For once, I had money in my life, so I went down to Joshua Tree and extended my kind of time abroad, and he had to come back and go to work.
Yeah, right. Kevin's told me the story of you guys... bivouacking on the head wall of the Salafay.
Yes. Did he tell you who brought about? Did he tell you specifically how our bivouac on the head wall of Salafay came to transpire?
He actually did admit to his guilt.
Good. Perfect. Yeah. I want mine to go down in history as Kevin. Look, we can rappel down to Soulatois. At least there's room for two people to sit down there. And his was, no, Blanche, let's just gun for the long ledges. I know we can make it if we go for it. Well, yeah, we didn't make it.
You spent the night in the hall bag, and he spent the night in his
butt bag.
His butt bag?
Yeah, in his butt bag, his etrius. And we actually even started falling asleep during that night. But the problem was, it's a 95-degree head wall, right? So I'm standing in the hall bag, and for one thing, it's only my shoulder that's touching, and the rest of my body's hanging away from the wall. And Kevin's very much, his knees are touching, but everything's hanging away. So, you're just so exhausted that, you start to lose consciousness, but your head rolls back like... and you wake up right away. So we took slings and made chokers around our foreheads and anchored our heads to the wall, and we'd be able to sleep for a while, and then the headache would get so bad that we'd wake up, but we'd get like 5 minutes of sleep. So we considered this to be an improvement.
Oh, God.
Okay.
New techniques in bivouac.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Denali was your first sort of expedition, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, the first time going to altitude and going into big mountains. And we were a good team. We had our organizational meetings. We made our delineations of jobs. You may remember that I was in charge of making the application to the Himalayan Foundation.
That's right.
So you guys probably got us like a phone book.
Yeah.
As Albie said, you guys listed every boulder you ever tripped over.
That's right.
But, it's interesting now. If I was put in this situation again, given the same weather, I think I'd go down. I'm pretty damn sure I know I'd go down because, some of the storms would be bordering on the scary hazard-wise, like big spindrift happening and then just raw, bitter cold. It'd be real easy to get frostbitten or get swept off your feet with that kind of weather. And but anyways, we persevered through it and got to the top and got lost on the top and chopped in on the farthing horn and spent a very cold, worrisome, uncomfortable night, but cleared enough in the morning that we could find our way down, and down we came. But Wally always thinks that you can do, that he can do more than is humanly possible. So we've had this trying experience on the casino. We're coming down. We're finally, after this rough bivouac, coming down into the 17,000 foot plateau camp. We're descending that wall. I don't know what they call it. We're coming down, and Wally says to me, "Blanche, let's push hard. If we push hard, I know we can make the airstrip today." It's like 10 miles away, and like 10 or 15,000 feet lower. It's like, Wally, let's just get to 14,000. Our food and fuel cache is there, or we've got more food and fuel there. We'll pick up the stuff at 17. We'll eat like pigs. We'll get into an igloo. It'll be really cool. No, Blanche, come on, don't let me down, man. I know we can do this. Come on, let's just really push. And I want to be out of here. I'm sick of it. I want to go home. So he doesn't even want to go home. He just wants to go where there's beer and women. But anyways, we're walking into 17,000 foot camp, and Wally's in front leading. And all of a sudden, he's walking along, and I'm staggering along behind him. He just falls over in the snow. And I walk up to him, and I have to help him up because he's so exhausted and spent and out of it. It's like, okay, Kev, down to 14. Let's go. Yeah, we went down to 14, and he did do something I haven't seen anyone else do. He ate 4 freeze-dried dinners by himself. 4, like, 2-person share freeze-dried dinners. That was good work.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, that was a pretty good effort. I think about that time you met probably the other most instrumental climbing partner in your life. You must have met Cheese around that time.
Yeah. Actually, Cheese was a big encouragement and big help to us going to McKinley, and it was kind of a little strange. Because David had come on into Calgary like a whirlwind out of nowhere, and he'd already done some things on Yamnuska, I think, that summer, and was rumored to just be this great climber. And we were competitive, we wanted to be the best or be darn close, and we didn't want other guys from South Africa rolling in and trying to be king of our hills. So we went down to the Calgary Mountain Club one night, and we'd actually been soliciting intelligence via Urs and Tim Friesen, who had met Dave Cheeseman and kind of climbed with him even. And Urs would tell you, he's a brilliant rock climber. He climbs like silk and all this stuff. And we went down, going down into at that time I think it was the Unicorn, down at the Unicorn for the Wednesday night Calgary Mountain Club thing, and knowing that Dave's going to be there, and just kind of I don't know. It's like canine behavior. Whose tail's going to end up in the air? The pack dog coming down and sniffing the air and looking for any sign of body language to jump. But he was gracious, charming, funny, great guy. Right from within a minute of meeting him, all this stuff that was going on in my head and Kevin's head too was just, well, that was stupid. We were wrong. And he was just really encouraging about going to the Casino. He'd gone there the year before by himself and put on skis. He told us, yes, I put on skis for the first time right here at the landing strip. And then he told us a bunch of beta, that helped us out on the route and encouraged us to go at it alpine-style and do what we were going to do. And yeah. Actually, at that time, too, shortly after that meeting, was when we went to Kitchener. It was the first week of April.
Right.
Before going, we went May to McKinley, but in April, Kevin and I went in and did our 24-hour round trip on Kitchener, where Wally used the tactic of when we did the variant or the variation to the Narrows, and he used the unheard of. I had never heard of this tactic, and I haven't heard of it since, of licking your bare fingers and letting them freeze to the rock to get more purchase. Yeah. It worked. He got up the pitch. It was a damn hard pitch. Great piece of alpine climbing.
Yeah.
And he did it. Yeah.
Did you bivouac on that, or did you do it?
No, we went in and we left the tent at. We were going to leave at midnight. We had the tent at the base of the face. We'd gone in the afternoon, and at midnight we got up, and the northern lights were just going off. They were yellows and purples and greens, and just coming right over and advancing over the summit of Kitchener, like high in the sky, and we were just spellbound and just watched that for an hour before we really started getting ready to go climbing. We left at 2 a.m, and we came back 2 a.m. We hit our tent again, so we were gone for exactly 24 hours, but we didn't bivouac. We climbed the whole time.
much more comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do that thing, is to just go and keep climbing and get down until it's done. Like a lot of big mountains, it's actually better to not sleep on them rather than sleep on them.
Yeah. Wow, pretty impressive. You're just racking up climb after climb after climb. Then you started doing new routes with Dave, Fay, Andromeda Strain, things like that.
Yeah. The Andromeda Strain was the next winter. It was exactly a year after the Kitchener. It was all in one winter. I went there 3 times, first with James Blanch and then with Kevin. And Kevin and I actually got partway up the crux before pulling the pin. Then I went back with Dave for the first time to climb with Dave Cheesmond and Tim Friesen. And Dave had been there twice before too. And it was funny, that winter he would go and make an attempt and leave rappel anchors in the lower part of the wall. Then I'd go with whoever I was climbing with, and on the way up we'd yank all the rappel anchors and then put them back in on the way down the wall. Then he'd come and yank all the rappel anchors and then put them back in on the way down the wall. And we did that, 3 or 4 times. Well, 3 times, and then on the 3rd time, we got lucky. 3rd time lucky.
Yeah.
And it is a really good route, really good quality alpine climb, and it's been done a lot now, and I think it's one of the better routes in the range. And I actually have one day I'm going to get back there, and I'd like to do the direct line that Greg Golovach and Joe McKay climbed when they climbed it. Although I know that pitch had been climbed before. Elzinga even climbed it. He opened up that pitch on one of his many, many, many attempts at the Andromeda Strain.
Yeah.
After coming back from McKinley, I decided I wanted to have a career, and Yamnuska Mountain School was advertising this hiring clinic. So I went to the Yamnuska Mountain School's instructor hiring clinic, and Chris Miller and Bruce Elkin talked me and instructed me through a weekend of how to become a novice, or an apprentice ice climbing instructor. And I remember walking in there, and James Blench and John Laughlin were just coming back into the Yamnuska Center, the fat, happy home. And they had just come back from, they were trying Stanley Right Hand is what they called it. It eventually ended up being Suffer Machine, an ice climb up in the Stanley Headwall area. And they bivouacked up there in the snowpack. John just looked at me and said the snowpack doubled overnight. It snowed all night. Said that was it. We had to leave. There's no choice. And so I met James and John kind of right there and then. And they asked me, well, what are you doing? And I'd met John before, but I hadn't met James before. And they said, well, what are you doing? I'm going to this hiring clinic. And they said, oh, wow, cool. Well, maybe we'll work with you.
Yeah.
And
that was the start of your career?
Yeah. That summer, after I worked a number of ice climbing courses over the winter, mostly with James. That was the winter that John died on Polar Circus. And after coming back from McKinley, I moved out to the Yam Center. And then that fall, we got the boot out of there, and we moved Yamnuska Mountain School to Canmore. And I've been stuck. Well, no, I've been here ever since.
Yeah.
This is home.
Yeah.
A short stint out at Dead Man's Flats, but still Canmore.
Yeah, and you've been guiding ever since, too.
Yep, I have.
Yeah.
I'm, I think about 15 years of guiding now. And, pretty happy with it, actually.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Good. Wow.
Alberta.
Yeah.
Yes. That was the summer, 83. Yes. Yeah. I went in there with Greg Cron, fellow instructor at Yamnuska Mountain School. I had been in the fall before with Albie in October to try the face, and I don't think either one of us really knew what we were talking about going in there that late in the year. And when we went in there and saw it, I remember looking at the steepness of the upper head wall and thinking, holy Christ, it's like a wall climb up there. And of course it was storming and wasn't happening. So we came out, but I was really, having seen it, I really wanted to get on it. And Greg and I went in August the next year, the next summer, and went up the face and took everything I'd learned. At that point, I think I'd been climbing for 5 or 6 years, and every skill I'd ever amassed climbing was used on that face. I I can never say enough about George Lowe, and I think I've said it before. I think I said it last night in a thing, but I think George contributed as much to the evolution of climbing as Reinhold Messner has. I think he's just an absolutely brilliant climber. George, and Reinhold is too, but I think George is just he was the man around here for a big chunk of the 70s, and like George, I led 7 of the 8 pitches on the head wall, so I felt I had quite the kind of similar immediate experience. Led all in plastic boots, and a lot of damn hard climbing up there.
Yeah.
And a lot of really good quality damn hard climbing, like just brilliant vertical 5'9", perfect limestone with sharp in-cut edges that, you know, really ideal for a plastic boot or a big mountain boot, but still, you know, honest 5'9", 5'10" climbing. And it was great. It was a good route. Took us 5 days. I remember we were getting down the lower parts of Woolly Creek. We were overdue, and we were booking along, and heard the helicopter coming up, so we ran out of the timber into the creek and started waving our hands and waving off the helicopter. The wardens were there when we got to the road. I think Bruce might have called them, being real worried about us. And I remember one of the wardens asking me, you know, why are you overdue? And we had a hailstorm on the face, and I said, well, you know, it just got coated in hail and snow, and just took more time than it would have if it wasn't coated with hail and snow. And I could see in the guy's eyes how much relief he had that he didn't have to try to go rescue guys up the North Face of Alberta, and I totally understand where he was coming from, because God, yeah, that would be a trick.
yeah. God, well, you're just racking up climb after climb after climb, year after year. It's what was driving you there?
I was just totally infatuated with alpine climbing. I couldn't. It was hard to get enough. I mean, outside of the climbs we've talked about, I was on like a second ascent of Elzinga route spree. Like, we did Diadem that fall in Cromwell, and this isn't an Elzinga route, but the Ringrose Couloir, and just anything that qualified as kind of a technical alpine route, I would have really wanted to do. And we'd, you know, when I had time off, I'd go up to the ice fields and minimally climb practice gullies on Andromeda, try things like, climb Shooting Gallery, or try Asteroid Alley. Kevin and I tried that. It wasn't any ice in it, so we didn't make it. But I just loved the going light into those big mountains, and really just loved the engagement and complexity of it, and trying to be, you know, I always thought that I could be this in control super alpinist who would have a handle, would know when the snow wasn't right, and know how to go through, you know, just had a handle on everything, could control everything. And it's been a pleasant awakening through my life to realize that you don't even have a hope. That environment is so immense and so complex that you'll never be the guy, you'll never understand it. You'll never be able to put an equation to it. I think that's really beautiful, but you'll be able to feel it, and you'll feel the majesty and I don't know, beauty of it. And that's, I think, a lot of it. And then, I mean, there's a million reasons to go climbing, and some of the reasons were to, you know, I was pretty psyched on being one of the best alpine climbers around. You know, it was like my chosen, it was my, I don't think it was like the chosen craft. I think of it more as a calling. Like, it called early on in my life on a Greyhound bus coming back from Saskatchewan, and over time I answered, and it has proved to be a true calling, and you just do it.
Soon you were on Fay in winter, continued your winter odyssey.
We go to Fay, and Cheesmond It's a long weekend. He's an engineer. He's got 3 days. This is Cheesman Logistics. Always worked this way. He had to be back at work Tuesday morning, right? So he and Carl drive out Friday night, pick me up in Canmore. We got everything packed. We drive to Lake Louise. We get on the skis. We have toboggans behind us. We ski the 12 kilometers into Moraine Lake. And we start skiing at about, 11 or midnight or something. We get into Moraine Lake at 6 in the morning, and we sleep in the cook shelter. This is all planned. We sleep for 2 hours. Then we get up and act like we slept like all night. We have 2 sets of skis. We leave 1 set of skis at the cook shelter, and we ski up on the other set of skis to the face. And the idea is we climb the face the next day or 2, and then come down, get this set of skis, ski out so Dave can get to work, and then later Carl comes in because he's just visiting and has all the time in the world to go get the other skis. But my first pair of skis broke within like 100 feet of the van, so I skied on my 1 pair of skis in there, realizing the whole time that I'd have to walk all the way out. Anyways, we get up to the face. It's an east face. This is a new one. We're always on the north face. It's always dark and cold, and you never see the sun. You see the sun across the valley, but the sun's on the face, and like there's wet spindrift avalanches coming off the face, so we have to sit there on our packs and wait for the sun to get off the face before we can go on the face. We get on the face, and we went there because there's an ice system that leads to half height on the face, and then we had envisioned climbing this steep 1,500-foot rock buttress above that. That never happened, but the ice system was great climbing, and some really damn hard ice climbing. Still one of the hardest steep ice pitches I think I've ever led, and one that Carl Tobin actually jumped off. And Carl Tobin is strong. And, when I told George Lowe that, George said, "I can't believe that you found a piece of ice that Carl couldn't climb." And I don't, I wasn't any stronger than Carl. I just had the advantage that he'd gone up there first and jumped off and left his ice tools up there so I could clip into him when I got there and get an ice screw in or use them as protection. So, yeah, we spent 3 bivouacs on that face, 3 snow caves, and obviously Dave was way late for work. But the second day, after the first snow cave, the first night, got hit by a cornice midday that wounded me, put a big bruise on my left shoulder and knocked my breath out of me. Didn't knock my lights out, which is good because I was just lollygagging around while Carl was leading a pitch with a bunch of rope between me and the anchor, so I would have gone for quite a ways. But yeah, we continued on up that day. Later that day it started snowing, and just snowed for the rest of the time, and it ended up being quite an uncomfortable, hard route. And I was very much in the back then. I couldn't lead because of the shoulder. So for one day I rode the back, then the shoulder felt better, so I started leading the last day again, and I got to do a couple steep little overhangs. And one of those pitches that made me feel like I knew something about that environment finally. Really quite hard, serious climbing with serious consequences to a mistake, but moving through it, feeling controlled, even though, you got one hand on snow-covered rock and the ice axe planted in a crack, and just complex stuff. And, I remember a little glazed knob of rock that was a little horn, and I came to it, and I knew immediately the thing to do was to grab it as a handhold, lower down beneath it, put the rope over it, and use it as a saddle horn to do a tension traverse down onto this escaped snowfield. And it literally just worked like that. Just one glance, and it's just like the point you get to rock climbing when you read the terrain in front of you. It's a long time to get to read alpine terrain. Yeah. But I remember we had a snow cave that night, and we were close to getting off, escaping the face, very much escaping the face, because we had to get off. We were out of food, out of fuel, all suffering quite a bit. I'd been very hypothermic every night. My sleeping bag got wet the first night in the cave, and I was about as cold as I think I've ever been on that route. Lost a lot of energy and calories just shivering. And it's interesting, on these routes, I'd come back and weigh myself, and it was never uncommon to lose 15 pounds in 3 days doing this kind of stuff. And that one for sure, 15, 20 pounds gone. And anyways, we're come out the snow cave the last day, and there's another fucking overhang, snow-covered spindrift coming down it, and I am battling away with this overhang, and I get over it, and I'm really pissed off, you know. Everything, the weather's just ugly, and it's suffering, and I'm standing at the belay with Carl, and I'm telling him, fuck, I'm sick of it, this sucks, this is fucking horrible, this is, Jesus, you know, I've had enough, fucking, okay, I quit, like, you know, let's just give us a fucking break. And Cheeseman's off leading, and Carl turns to me and he goes, hey man, it don't got to be fun to be fun. Which got me laughing, so it got better then.
Yeah. So was that climb a little bit of a training climb for Rakaposhi then?
Well, we were 7 keeners from Canada. We had a doctor, and then there was, of course, Tim Friesen and Kevin Doyle and myself and Greg Cron and Dave Cheesmond and Steve Langley. And I guess I'll talk a bit about Cheesman. One of the things I think that I realize now, and I don't know if I realized it so much at the time, but Dave was a very good leader. He was a great leader. And not in the sense of the word of kind of, you know, big square jaw, like a Russian statue boldly going forward into the new era or anything, but he just had a lot of energy for, you know, the details, taking care of all the little logistical details. And then he just had a great gift for orchestrating a climb, looking, you know, getting guys to do what they were best at in a climb, like when it was appropriate for one of us to go up front because we do it the fastest kind of thing. You know, he would see that, and then while we were leading, he would be organizing ropes and systems to accelerate things and make things happen. He really had a great ability to keep the big picture in mind, like physically see in his mind exactly where you are on the mountain, on the route, which is not always an easy thing to do, and pre-visualize what you're going to have to do to get from where you are on the mountain to the top of the mountain, or get off of the mountain, or whatever. And I think the greatest kind of, or the best thing he did was, and when I think about leadership and look around, and it's a big topic in our society and our culture, he really, I don't know, just be the kind of guy you'd want to have at the head of your platoon if you had to go into battle, because he really cared about everybody on you know, all the guys he climbed with. He really genuinely cared for all our well-being and his well-being, and I think that's it's a good one to be able to keep that going all the time. Not everyone can do it.
No.
So, yeah. So Dave was the leader.
Dave was the leader. Whose idea was the climb? Who picked the mountain?
It was actually Dave and Urs. Dave and Urs and Tim, I think, originally started talking about going over there. It was time to, you know, it was time for us to go to the Himalaya. It was Greg Child that sent us a picture of Rakaposhi taken from Karimabad, and we saw that line on the North Face. I mean, pretty damn obvious. And climb here, and go up this arete till you get to the top and come down. And it wasn't an 8,000 meter peak. It was one we thought we'd get permission for quick, like within a year, and we could get it together to go there. And it looked about the right level of difficulty and commitment for us. Ironically, the day we finally did go to the top after I don't know, by then 45 days of effort to try to get there, there's the afternoon cumulus cell phenomena, and then electricity, and just we were inside a cloud, so it wasn't lightning, but it was field electricity or something. Anytime you got higher than the ridgeline going to the summit, you'd get zapped off your feet and just thrown down onto your feet. So you did that once and realized, no, I'm not going to get above the ridgeline here, because if I get zapped over the other side, it's quite a ways. This side, like the back slope's fine, but the front side would be too cool. So we got up to the top, and we got up there, and sure enough, you can hear the electricity going into the rock, like tick, 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 and we're all standing there, and we can't go stand on the summit for fear we'd get fried. So
you put your hands on the summit? Did you?
No, we didn't. We turned around, and at least in my memory, I don't remember putting my hand on the summit. I remember being the last guy there, and Dave, I was on the end of the rope. Dave and Kevin were already started down. I had a real urge to go up and do it. And it's kind of like, but I didn't do it.
Yeah. Next big climb I can think of is North Wind.
Yeah, North Wind with Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that climb for a while, Dave and I, and we'd actually been planning it, I think, for a couple of years. I mean, you see that face in the right light, or you see a picture when the early morning light cuts across it and the pillar stands out, and then within a half hour it's just lost in the kind of haze of that big black hole. But if you see it right, that pillar just, that's, even more than George's line. The pillar is like, climb here. The face was in condition, which for that face means it's really dry. You want not a lot of snow and a lot of dry rock because it's so much rock climbing. But hand in hand with that, you just get a wild rock fall. I've never been on a mountain that has anywhere near any kind of equivalent of amount of rock fall. As soon as the sun comes around onto those summit slopes, it just starts to hail stuff. And I remember on the lower face, we would climb the steep, hard cracks and then just sprint as hard as we could up the shale slopes and try to get close to something steep again, because it was it was Dieppe. Things were exploding all over the place. It was really scary place until you got up maybe 1,000 feet onto the face, and then you kind of traverse over and get under the pillar, which actually overhangs in the top. So then it calms down, and then over the next couple of days, when you finally get on the pillar, the thing is so steep that the rocks are falling, but they're 200 feet out behind you in the air. So they're kind of an interesting distraction at that point. And water falling off the apex of the snow field and the face on the top, like these jewels of water 100, 200 feet out in the air, just falling through space, catching sun and stuff. Pretty neat visual phenomena. Yes, and we think about it. It was the second day, and in order to save weight, we'd taken one pair of rock shoes, Dave's size 10 rock shoes, which I had no problem fitting my size 8 feet into. It left something to desire in kind of terms of performance of the rock shoe. And I was leading a steep wall, and I was pulling pretty hard to get, I think, raise a foot, and I was pulling hard on small holds, and I just heard this snap, and it was this finger just sprained from pulling hard on it. I just, wow, ouch, and fell off, and as I fell, I kicked, like rock came with me. Maybe a rock broke off or something that, your foot blows off, you don't really even know what happens, and then you overload your hands and snap, something like that happens. Fall down, and I remember when I didn't fall that far, 5 feet, piece was real close, and I saw this baseball-sized rock. I was hanging sideways on the rope, and Dave was sitting down on a rock ledge with his legs out in space, kind of in a sitting position. And I just watched this softball-sized rock just go spinning right down and hit him right in the thigh. And it just, oh man. I mean, he just immediately went limp because it gave him a really good whack, just like probably getting hit by a sledgehammer. And just wham, and fuck. And then I was like, oh shit, man. And then realizing that this wasn't working, so Dave took over. He had to go out massaging his thigh for a while and get it to quit from cramping. But he took over the lead and really did the lion's share of the leading for the rest of definitely the rock. We found, I could still climb the ice, and I would do the ice sections, which was good because Cheese was many things, but he wasn't a blessed ice climber. I don't think he dug it that much. But, we kept at it, and, the the not so technical rock passages, I would lead in anything that could be led in mountain boots. I would lead, and anything that involved rock chutes, Dave would lead. And once you hit the pillar, it almost all involved rock chutes, and he was just brilliant. I mean, he'd disappear around the corner of the pillar and start, the rope would start paying out, and I'd hear, watch me, and then, and oh man, it's so cool, and then I'd jumar up the pitch, and he'd tell me, like, 10A, man, 10A, and then, the next one would be 10B here, and the only thing that would ever change was the A, B, C, D kind of thing. And halfway up it's like the third day on the face, we're on the pillar, and he's done actually that night, the night before, there's a storm coming in, and it's like, oh man, we're halfway up this thing. There's no chance of rescue. There's no technology in the world that can get you out of there. And you're just thinking, you don't want to be here in a storm. You don't have enough rack to retreat what you've climbed. Even if you just use one piece per anchor, you'll never get back down like the 30 pitches you just climbed to get here. And this storm is coming in, and I lead a pitch, and I'm blade, and Dave takes off, and above the pillar really kicks back. Like it's just all your horizon is rock. Dave goes up, and he traverses around out of sight, and all of a sudden I hear this screaming and shouting, like, oh man, you won't believe it, man, it's so cool. Oh man, there's a cave here, man, a cave. So, what? There's a cave, man, a cave. A what? A cave. So I get up there, I climb up after, haul the packs and do all the hard work. Get up there, climb over, and sure enough, there's this little triangular hole in the mountain with this like flake. It's not even a flake, it's like this fold of the rock face has come out. And inside is this perfect little cave that's just big enough for two guys. It's got a roof. It's got like a bomber friend crack up there. We anchor the tent, the Bibbler tent, I should actually say the integral tent, to the thing up there, and make this little draped tent. It's got an ice floor, so we got a source of water, and we sit in this thing and laugh and watch the lightning and thunder and rain falling outside, and it's like, we can stay here forever, we never have to leave. And it was great too, because lightning strikes were going all around, and being insulated by rock was a good feeling. And it quit overnight, and it was dry in the morning, so I belayed in the cave, and Dave went out there on the A3 stuff, led a full pitch of wide A3, probably 100 degrees, and not of temperature, but of inclination, and belayed, and I came out, and I was jumaring up this thing, cleaning it, spinning around in space, and I fell. It's just like all of a sudden everything started falling, and I saw this big black shape just go right by my shoulder. I thought, fuck, it's Cheeseman, and I looked, and it was this rock, this huge rock the size of this table, just smoking down, and it free fell for several thousand feet before it just exploded like a grenade, or I don't know, a mortar strike on the lower face, and then just smoked the glacier. And what had happened, I was jumaring, and Dave had a number 3 friend as the principal part of the anchor, and there was so much pressure on the friend that it just, this fractured side of the crack that he didn't notice or didn't think could ever possibly move, just got jettisoned by the pressure of the friend. I fell about 5 feet, and he had the backup nuts and stuff in, so we didn't end up going for the big ride, although there would have been pieces between us too, but that definitely got your attention. Yeah. Bang.
Bang, yeah.
But anyways, sure. Yeah, I got up to him, and we carried on, and remember the last ledge of the face, we were actually lying on these shattered ledges with overhanging ground above and below, and we were jury rigging, kind of like the Salathe again, except this time lying. I jury rigged my pack to suspend my feet, and had the rope suspending one shoulder, and one butt cheek kind of wedged in the crack, and I had to lie perfectly flat like that all night, and there was water dripping down on my sleeping bag from above. And then the next morning, we got up out of this kind of uncomfortable bivouac, and Dave disappeared around the corner, and I really thought he was going to fall for a while. And he pulled through a lot of "watch me, man, watch me, oh man, I can't believe it, and it was like a 10D perfect hand crack that led to the changeover of the face. And I remember coming up on the Jumars, and this is the source of most of the rock fall, and there's chunks of rock kind of bouncing around as they leave this snow face up above. And I'm looking at the cello string tight 9mm rope, and I'm just gripped because I think one rock hits that rope and I'm going to be back down with the rock explosion on the glacier. And Cheeseman looks down at me, and he can see the tension and anxiety and fear and angst in my face. And he goes, "Blanchard, relax. We're almost there, man. All we have to do is keep a cool tool for 8 hours and we're out of here." And it's true, you pull over the edge and you've just done, 50 pitches of climbing on this face, and you get deposited on an alpine route up there. You have another 8 rope lengths of 60-degree and steeper alpine climbing to get up to the top of the Twins Tower, and then traverse that incredible sickle ridge that Wiesner climbed. We did that and went across below North Twin. We didn't go to the summit of North Twin, and ended up sleeping right on the summit of Stutfield, one of the summits of Stutfield, and a thunderstorm came over that night. And I was just thinking, oh man, we're right on the top of this mountain. Oh man, this would be so... I'd be real bitter if I got fried. And the next day we were down and out. And
How'd you feel after that one? That's a pretty great achievement.
Well, yeah, as usual, immediately after I felt like I'd been ridden pretty hard and put up wet to dry. And really just thrashed. Really ragged, pleasant kind of feeling of total exhaustion. And yeah, it was neat. Actually, Jill was waiting for us. Jill Cheeseman was waiting for us out of the car. It was really neat to see her and Dave meet. And when I got back to Canmore, my wife, Jill, was off playing baseball. Couldn't believe what all the fuss was about. All her friends had come up to her on the baseball team. It's like, "Barry's overdue. Do you know he's overdue 2 days?" It's just, yeah. What's the big deal? He always does this.
He always does this.
He's good. Don't worry. They've called out the wardens,
Oh, jeez.
We tried to climb Kefren again, and actually I went there with Dave Cheeseman and Jeff Marshall and Jim Elzinga, and we made an attempt, and big storm, a lot of spindrift avalanches. I remember Ward was really worried about us. He was back in Banff and he saw the weather, and he was worried about us. We didn't make it all that far. We made it about a third of the way up the face, and it was obvious we had to go down. But I remember as we were rappelling down the lower gullies, you'd look up at the upper wall and just go, "Yeah, here comes another one." And you see these big billowing clouds of spindrift, and they look like cumulus clouds just exploding off the face. And you go, "Yeah, okay." And you just look around and start stomping your feet in and get clipped in or whatever, because you knew it would take exactly about 2 minutes for it to get to you, and then it would just rush through this couloir that you were in, like, I don't know, million cubic metric tons of sand. And you just like play around in it, surf it a bit, like, and then it would die down and like and shake off all the snow. You'd come out with these big cone heads and shit like this. And you'd go, "Okay, you can rappel again." And you rappel for 5 minutes, you look up and see him. "Yeah, here comes another one." It was, it was kind of funny. It was funny. But, yeah, a little while after, Ward and Peter Arbick phoned me and told me they were going, and weather looked good and all that stuff. So I moved heaven and earth and got guys all over the co-op to cover for me, and I was able to pull it together to go with them. And I remember Ward went into the Wild Boys, Dave's shop in Calgary, that week, and told Dave that he was going to go try this with Peter Arbick, and Cheeseman said, "You have to take Blanchard. You can't go there without Blanchard. This is his route. You can't do it." so yeah, Ward had intended on calling me, but I went there with Ward and PA, and we got up it over I think three or 4 days, 3 bivouacs. We had a bivouac right on the top, so 3 days of climbing on the face, and then half a day to get down. But at the crux, it was interesting for me to see that Ward took exactly the same 30-foot fall off of aid that I had taken on the second attempt in 1984 with Kevin and James Blanch. And that was aiding up frozen rock driving knife blades. And then you get out, you got to get up into this chimney over here, and you're coming out of an overhanging alcove, and you place a number 3 friend in this crack. And I remember I got up there and I had my waist clipped into the friend, and I was pretty much horizontally laid out, reaching, trying to get my ice axe in, and the friend just pulled. I remember it's like there's a magnetic lock on your waist, and someone hits the power off, and the magnetic lock just breaks. You get no warning at all. Suddenly you're in the air, just bing, 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 smack down on this slab. And I remember when I fell, I think Wally was reaching for lunch in the pack or something. But Ward took exactly the same fall and then went back up and did it. It was cool. And it was a great route up high. It was just brilliant climbing. 5-pitch ice system up high that just doesn't get any better. When we were walking down from Kefren, we came down the huge, east slopes down to Kefren Lake. And we looked at Hauss all the way down, and Ward and I just saw that line and just decided we were going to have to come and try that. So it was the next winter, 88, that we went there, and that was a big year of climbing for me. I decided I really wanted to try to climb that year, so a year of living dangerously, because I wanted to change it from, I want to blatantly rip off the guy's title. So I changed that to A. Yeah, I actually started off that year down in Mexico. I was guiding the volcanoes down there almost every year those years. I guess I came back to Canada, of course, and I soloed Polar Circus, which was a good one for me. And then Ward and I went to the North Face of Edith Cavell and climbed that, which was the first time it had been climbed in winter. And that was a nice trip. Left Canmore at 2 a.m, got up there, skied in, climbed half the face. Got the only place on the face had enough snow to make a snow cave. This snow cave was the smallest we've ever done it in, slept in. But it was about the size of a coffin. And he had the MSR stuff. I just wanted to go to sleep, but Ward was all jazzed to get hydrated. Like, no, we gotta, we need fluids. He was right, but he has this shitty little MSR, and he gets it going right kind of here. And yeah, I think I fell asleep, but I think I fell asleep out of exhaustion, and then he fell asleep out of breathing the carbon monoxide from the stove. Yeah, a lot of guys have checked out that way. Yeah. But we got up the next morning and went rocketing on up to the top. Got to the top, noon or something. That part of the face was just great intermediate climbing. Just perfect little ice runnels and rocks sticking out to put your hands on or put a sling around and stuff. Really good quality climbing. And we came down the East Ridge. Ward was so good then. He was just doing so much. I mean, he was definitely climbing better than I was, technically, for sure. I mean, he was just living, breathing, climbing, and didn't have a wife and didn't have any other responsibilities in his life. Those times have changed. But
that's right.
Yeah. He got to this place. It's like one of the little cruxes on the East Ridge. He just down climbed it. Just went climbing down this thing, and God, I remember I thought I was going to fall off. He was sitting down there waiting for me. And he finally couldn't watch it anymore because I was taking so much time dancing up and down this thing, trying to find the hold. I finally found the hold to get down it, and Ward was just sitting on his pack looking out at the environment because he didn't want to watch me anymore. And I got to him, and I remember he said, I think, to be fast in the mountains, you got to be really good at that kind of stuff. Just be able to down climb and just climb over a lot of, low class fifth ground. It's, important. You got to be good at it. Thanks, man. Yeah. So anyways, we go a little farther, and he down climbs another section, and I'm thinking I've got the rope, and we just did a half rappel, so I'm dragging the rope behind me, and I think I don't want to down climb with the rope. It's going to be laborious and fearful enough. I'm going to throw the rope down to Ward. So I get some coils of rope and I go, Ward, I'm going to throw the rope down to you so I don't have to down climb with it. And I throw it and the wind immediately takes it over the south side of the mountain. And I just remember this sickening sight of this perfect symmetry of the rope dancing in a wave in the wind, like going, it's like, oh, I just threw the fucking rope off the mountain. I just threw our rope off the fucking mountain. It's like, oh, and Ward's looking up at me and he goes, well, we don't have to carry that anymore. It's just like, fuck, I threw the rope off the mountain. I can't believe I threw the fucking rope off the mountain. I'm just like, no, we have to rappel more. We can't live without the rope. So I look down over the south face and it's hooked on a horn down there. So I get my prusik out and I got to put in a pin and tension down to the very end of my prusik, and I was able to hook the rope with my ice axe at full extension and pull it up and get it in my teeth and go back up the prusik and retrieve the rope. Yeah, but we did that, and then 4 days later we went to Hauss Peak. It was March, and skied in there and got on the face and just started climbing and had 3 bivouacs on the face, and I did a topo thing for it once and counted it up. We did 18 fifth class pitches, and you know the hardest ones definitely being 5-10 mixed climbing and A3 climbing, and many of the true crux pitches falling toward just in the natural kind of rhythm of the climb, which didn't break my heart at all. But yeah, the second night on the face, I remember him aiding out over a roof, A3 roof on Friends and Nuts and stuff, and he disappeared, and it was dusk. You know, there was no light anymore, and I was sitting already in my sleeping bag on this ledge below the roof, belaying him like that, and yeah, he just came falling out of the sky. Wham! Hit the rope right in this perfectly framed thing from the chimney and stuff, and was spinning on the end of the rope. It was like, Ward! But he just went back up there and did it, and figured it out and fixed the rope, came back down, and we continued the next day. And I remember we came out of that feature that we called the gash, the really deep chimney that we were in, and onto this hanging glacier, and it's possible to escape there. You can go up a huge couloir over on the right and just be onto the back slopes of the mountain and be on the descent, basically. And Ward had kind of had enough there, you know. This was 2.5 days into it. 2.5 days into it. And the upper head wall, where we thought there was a weakness that would be logical, we saw was just this shallow crease with really nothing to climb in it. But I looked right and saw a feasible line up the right part of, you know, the wall. And I remember I said, you know, he said, well, you had enough, you know, you want to get out of here. And he was kind of, you know, I've had it, I don't want to do this, you know, let's get out of here. And I said, no, man, look at her, you know, we should go, let's go do it, let's go take a look, you know, we've got nothing to lose, it's only midday, we can always leave. And yeah, that little bit of enthusiasm, you know, got him going, and we went up, and it all worked out. He did a really serious, hard pitch up there, one that, you know, if he had fallen off, he would have died, and he didn't have, you know, any protection in, and it was definitely hard enough climbing that you could fall off. One of those ones that you get caught out on. And he pulled through it, got up to an anchor, and I remember I came up to him, and he just looked at me, his big blue eyes, and goes, just fucking give it her, eh? And we spent that night on top of a snow mushroom, anchored to about a 70-degree ice wall. The thing just grew out, probably on a rock or something under there. Knocked the top off of it, and it's about as big as this table again. And I remember Ward was all impressed because I slept with my shoulders out over the void, and he slept with his shoulders out against the wall. We went over the top the next day and traversed over to the White Pyramid, and then down climbed the ice arête between the White Pyramid and Kefren, which is bulletproof alpine or glacial ice. Man, that stuff's hard. It was like concrete. And then came down the same way we had off of Kefren, basically. Remember, we got down to the end of the lake, and we hadn't anything to we ran out of fuel, so we didn't have anything to drink for about a day and a half. And at the outflow of the lake, there was exposed water. So we went down and just started chug-lugging water, and the only thing we had left was a bag of hot chocolate. So we're taking these bags of like powdered hot chocolate, like handfuls, and going spitting this powder out, and then grabbing water and going. But yeah, then we skied away to the truck and went home.
Yeah. Got ready for the next expedition.
Yes, that's
the
true.
expedition to end all expeditions.
Yes, Nanga Parbat.
Nanga Parbat.
Huh, yeah, that was ambitious.
You couldn't think much bigger than that.
Well, we took John's words to heart. Go big or go home.
That's right.
That climb was pretty damn wild. But when I look back on it, it's also, we were so close. You know, Ward met Mesner the next year in Nepal and described to him where we were, and he said, "You guys you'd climb 10 more feet and walk to the top. You know, you'd walk for 1,000 feet up this snow slope and you'd be on top." And it's a bit heartbreaking to look at how close we were, and you know, I think we all had a more than huge adventure, you know, more adventure than I think I'd ever want to have again. Definitely more out of control adventure than I'd ever want to have again. And I don't have any regrets of the trip, but it would have really been neat to have done it, you know.
Yeah.
It would have been something. You know, we did do something, but you know, we all know how important that little one piece is.
Yeah. Yeah.
As Mark said, man, if we had got to the top, man, we'd have got shaving commercials, cars, chicks. God. Could have worn like flashy clothes.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, that's right. Then Everest, you got so close on Everest too.
Yeah, later that fall. Yeah, with Mark. But, you know, that was it was good to go back. You know, I was still really kind of torqued up about 86, and what's interesting to me now is I went with 88, I went with Mark, I went the way I like to climb, and we made 3 attempts on a new route on the northeast flank and got beaten by the altitude basically every time, getting sick. I got sick a couple times, Mark got sick once, or cold once. I got cerebral edema one time and pulmonary edema another time. But then my acclimatization came around. I don't acclimatize as fast as Mark. And we made a last attempt on the North Ridge, and we didn't even take the rope or harnesses. I mean, that route is not that steep. You'd actually I would feel safer with skis on, definitely coming down the North Ridge, you'd be safer with skis on a lot of the time than walking. It's ski terrain, you know, and we went up there and gave it a good shot, and it was October 23rd. It was getting really cold on that side, and we made it up to 27.5 or 28,000 feet, and you know, we were just beat. The mountain beat us, and we turned around, and damn good thing that we turned around when we did, because when we started coming down, and I think we both realized how exhausted we were, we knew right then that if we had have went to the top, we'd still be up there. We would have spent all our spare change getting to the top, and we'd have nothing to pay for the way down. Yeah. And I walked away from there, had a great trip with Mark, and I wasn't, after 86, I was anxious all the time about getting back to Everest. And after 88, I haven't been that anxious about getting back to Everest. And I can say right now I have no angst or anxiousness about getting back to Everest.
No.
It's just, I went again in 94, but it was just kind of a good opportunity that fit into my schedule at the time. But maybe someday I'll go back, but I'd really like to go back to Nanga Parbat before I'd like to go back to Everest.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me so much to stand on top of an 8,000 meter peak. I've been to 8,000 meters without oxygen, and I know I can do it. What would be important to me is certain 8,000 meter peaks I would love to stand on top of, but not by virtue of the fact that they're 8,000 meters, by virtue of the fact that they present, like Nanga Parbat, the largest mountain face in the world, or the French or the south face of Makalu. You know, it's just, there's a whole bunch of evolutionary quality climbing to be done up there. I hope it's quality. Maybe you'll get up there and it'll just be horrible. But I've always I always respect and have more energy and motivation towards trying to push my own evolution, but in hopefully in some small way contribute to the evolution of climbing. You know, I'm proud of the things that we accomplished, and I think if we contributed, or what we did contribute, was to push it in the wintertime and kind of open up the more technical side of winter. And those 3 and 4 day routes they're great experiences. I mean, you don't have to go halfway around the world to do that, although there's a lot of charm to traveling. We've got huge adventure sitting right in our backyard, and truly, and I've gone halfway around the world to try to find, you know, alpine experiences halfway around the world, and these are some of the best. You know, the winter in the Rockies. There's some great climbing out there.